Hey everybody, my name is Angie Murenga. You're watching Just Angie. We've recently rebranded to Ustawi. I love the name Ustawi, and it means resourcefulness. It has meanings of welfare. And for me, my thought behind the name Ustawi was that we would talk about things that are related to leadership, to governance, to justice, and I wanted to add purpose. And so today in studio, woo, hallelujah, we have a man that I really hold dear to my heart, who has performed open heart surgery, if that is possible, when I'm still here awake, and has really spoken to our lives about relationships. And that's the conversation I want to have over the next 2 weeks about relationships. And Dr. Oscar, karibu sana.
Thank you so much, Pastor Angie. Good to see you.
It's very good to see you, but I've been debating whether it's a good thing to see you or not see you. I've remembered all the things that, that you spoke to us about. And so, maybe, who is Dr. Oscar?
Well, that's a good question. I think Dr. Oscar is a guy who I think is fortunate, became fortunate and blessed to study one of the rarest forms of psychology. But coming from a humble background in Nakuru, and then going through education, living in the US for about 10 years, all the while working in the field of forensic psychology. But then I realized that there's a lot that happens in that field. And that's why probably the relationships. I'd be the last person to talk to anybody about relationships, by the way, because my interest is more in justice, peace, security. I'm a father to my lovely daughter Mwangaza, my husband, my wife Nari. And just living life and going through it and realizing that sometimes some things are not always like prescribed, and that you can't always have the answer to everything. So I realized that men cause a lot of problems on Earth.
They do.
Because of being a forensic psychologist, on the two continents where I've worked really deeply, in the US and in Kenya, I've realized majority of incarcerated people are men.
That's true.
And so because of that, I said, what does that have to do? How can we then intervene? How can I put my voice in there? So by listening to them, many of whom have done very horrendous things, that's how I ended up finding out about the gaps, and especially to do with relationships. Probably we're going to talk about more with you.
We definitely have to. You know, you even said talking about the incarceration rate, and I have compassion towards the incarcerated, because I think there's a way we treat them and you just dismiss them, and it's like when you're incarcerated, that's it. But I think what you're saying is you went into the thought behind the incarceration, you went deep into why are these people incarcerated. But something else you also said, which stuck out to me, was that we could actually conclude that 100% of crime is caused by men, because you said 90, did you say 90%?
Yes. Between 85 and 90% of violent crime is attributed to men directly.
And the 15%
is by women, but if you go deeper,
it's about
under
men.
About men and under the provocation of men. So I'm not saying that there are no women who can actually perform it on their own, but you're right in talking about 100% of it coming from men. So I said to myself, my goodness, are we really helping the world, or we're not, or we're destroying it, you know?
Yeah.
And yet we're the leaders, we're the fathers, we're the, you know, and that concerned me a lot. And I said, you know what, let me try and see if there's a way to look at this man, look at his fragility, understand him a bit deeper, understand myself a bit deeper, so that we can be able to interact with women better and probably make it a better place. I don't know if I've succeeded, but I'm still on that path.
Well, with the women you have, because you said when I found you do a lot of work with men.
Yes.
But this was the first time,
yes, exactly,
that you had spoken to women.
Yes.
And it was about seeing a relationship through a man's eyes.
Correct.
And honestly, you woke us up. I mean, I'm not joking. I died and resurrected at least 7 times.
Oh, wow.
I was like, Dr. Oscar, what kind of statement is that? So we're going to, because we only have 15 minutes to get this done, and next week, and then we've got another seminar coming up, another workshop coming up, where they can come. I guess we'll recap what happened in March.
Yes.
But then proceed with part 2 in June on June 25th.
Yes.
And you can see details in the post about how you can do that. The statements that you make. I was like, okay, let's start with one.
Okay.
About marriage.
Yes.
About the lifelong and preparedness.
Yes.
So let me not say, you say it because you know how to say it better.
Okay.
Let's start there.
No problem. I think that people misunderstand the concept of marriage, first of all.
Yep.
And so they think just because I love this person, we're going to live the rest of our lives together perfectly.
Also, you said, I've just remembered something else.
Yes.
You said men fall in love after the
After
wedding.
they get married, yes.
But the women fall in love
Before the
before.
wedding, yes.
We can't unpack everything.
That one we won't even be able to, because that
come
one
to
is
the
a
seminar
longer
so
one.
that we can see what we can do.
True. Because men, at the time of having that person who they call their wife, is when they start realizing the magnificence of the person in front of them.
Wow.
And therefore they start falling in love with that version of the person.
Wow.
They met a girl, and now they're developing with a woman.
Wow.
And so they start falling in love with that concept. Women were falling in love with this tall, dark, handsome fairy tale idea. Then when they get into it, then there's questions of submission, there's questions of leadership and stuff. They're like, what am I doing here? And not that you don't fall in love with a person, but the level just stays the same. They want to do a lot more things for the man and all that. But really, if you measure the love before and after, I think the one before will be more. But back to the question you asked me.
Unpreparedness.
Yes. I always say that marriage is where the lifelong preparedness of a woman meets the lifelong unpreparedness of a man.
And you know, it's actually so true when you look at it, because we're prepared for marriage. And you know, even when people are playing with dolls and you're playing house, it's all about this big grandiose idea that I'm going to get married, I'm going to do house, we're going to play house. But the man is not prepared in the same way.
Oh, no, not at all. You're told you'll be the leader of your family, and everybody will listen to what you have to say.
But you're not told how you're going to be a leader.
No.
And I think another thing, just by living life, that has really spoken to me is that very few men have been modeled to what it is to be that man.
Correct.
That they're being asked to become.
Yes.
It hasn't been modeled to them. There are a lot of assumptions, and there are a lot of gray areas, and there are a lot of just statements.
Yes.
But there's no backing, there's no meat, there's no substance
there's a lot
to those statements.
No, you're right. There's a lot of motivational speaking around how to be a man of purpose, excuse me, and all those kind of things. But in reality, if you think about the depth of what you're talking about right now, leadership in a family, being patient,
being kind, being loving, being the strong one.
What does love mean in that context? You know, being able to cover your family and provide for them, no matter what is happening. I think before we started recording and before we started doing the show, we were talking a bit about unconditional love. I don't think that many of us are primed for unconditional love. It's transactional. I love you if you do A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
I love you
that's
if
why many marriages fail.
Absolutely. Because I fulfill my part, or you fulfill your part, and then I don't fulfill my part, then you start looking down at me and saying, hey, am I getting a raw deal here? Because you can't love me unconditionally.
Because it's transactional.
It's transactional.
And that's why I think marriages used to last before. We say there are too many sacrifices and we don't want to sacrifice.
Yes.
But it's because I think it wasn't transactional.
No, it wasn't.
It was unconditional love.
Yes.
And it was about, let's do this thing together. It had pain. I think I can't negate there was a lot of pain.
Of course.
A lot of sacrifice, but somebody had to sacrifice.
Yes.
You know, the other thing that I've noticed, Dr. Oscar, is that I realize also parenting is a sacrifice.
Yes.
Because of the things that I see.
True.
So I see parents who have refused to be selfless. Because parenting is about being selfless.
Absolutely.
If you try to bring yourself into that equation,
my goodness.
you give up, or you just destroy all the children, or you
Yes.
walk away.
Yes.
Same for marriage.
True.
There has to be a selflessness, which we don't want to hear about. I guess the more we become independent, the more that we, I don't know whether it's grow, mature, the more that the world becomes a global village, we really don't want to sacrifice. But
True.
it is about sacrifice and no transactions.
No transactions.
It's not about transactions.
I think the world has taught us, and you're very right about it, it's taught us that when you put in certain inputs,
I must get output.
that's it.
But it's not.
It's not necessarily the same. You invest in your kids.
Don't even get me started. Don't start.
You pay school fees from kindergarten, grade school, high school, university. And they come back and tell you, Mom, here's your degree.
Yeah. Because that's what you wanted.
You wanted me to go to
And
school.
what about walking away? Right now, I'm experiencing trauma. I actually need some therapy.
Yes.
My daughter is getting married.
Ah, yes.
It's very traumatic. I didn't even think I would cry. It is. Because you've invested in this person.
Yes.
You have a vested interest.
Yes.
But now you have to let them go.
Yes.
Step aside.
Yeah.
And buy. And all the investment was for somebody else. My goodness.
Imagine.
It's for panic and for, I don't even know what else to say. But lifelong preparedness.
Correct.
Of a woman,
Yes,
meets the lifelong unpreparedness
of a man.
man.
And men are fragile, and I think I like to lead with that.
You even said men are broken.
They're broken, and they're fragile, they're broken. And I even dare say on this platform that men are weaker than women.
Yeah, I think they are.
From the moment of conception, I think we had talked deeply
Oh yes, you talked about that.
about that even at the point where the sperm is going to meet the egg,
Yes.
that the sperm that produces a man, the Y chromosome, is inferior to the X one.
And dies along the way
Dies
a
along
lot
the way,
more than
faster.
the X one. Oh yeah.
It has a lot of it's really fast, swims faster, but dies faster.
Now the Y one.
The Y one. The X one is lazier, takes its time, but lives for about 3 days.
And this one dies quickly as well, the Y one.
Yes. The Y one. It's smaller. It can't survive in that environment. So a man is facing adversity.
From even the place
From
of
before they even
conception.
formed. Yes.
Before formation has taken place.
And
oh
then,
my goodness.
and then let's make the mistake of the conception happening. And that now you have a boy in the making. That pregnancy, and I'm not a scientist in that way.
But it's tough, it's different.
But I've heard anecdotal reports, I've seen a lot of things. And even in my own life, I've seen it, that a boy pregnancy seems to be harder than a girl pregnancy.
Yeah.
When a boy is born, celebrate when they're born. Because until the age of 5, when you talk about child mortality, it's more when you account for boys than girls. And so when that boy reaches the age of 5, it's actually a miracle of life. All along, the girls have been resilient. They're not getting sick. If you look at pneumonia, pneumonia has been carrying away more boys. At the age of 7 and 8, if you think about it, a girl is way bigger than a boy.
She is.
She's more responsible. They're pointed in responsibility things, even in class. So the boy is suicidal. I mean, the boys, it's like almost like we have this gene to annihilate ourselves. But then nature rewards us. At about 13.
Is that when testosterone kicks in?
Testosterone kicks in, and all of a sudden, I'm stronger, faster, taller, my voice breaks, and I get into this dominant position, which I was never prepared for. Wow. So my software, as it were, my hardware is weak. It's just been made fast. But the software I had never been prepared for any leadership, for any emotional regulation or reflection. So these are the people who are going to adolescence. They end up in campus. They start dating our daughters who've been prepared all this time. When a girl does something, she says, no, that's not what a good girl does.
Good girls don't do this.
Yes, good girls don't do this. If you want to get married,
this,
yes.
you do this. If you want to get married,
yes.
Yeah, those are the conversations.
Boys are just being told, who beat you? Go beat him back.
Oh my goodness.
That's the counseling you receive. At the end of it all, you somehow magically want it to work.
It's almost an impossible situation.
I mean, really, as Injanthropos,
meeting a prepared
emotionally,
person,
meeting a Homo sapiens sapien, relationship-wise, that's never going to work. And for me, that's where the problem and the disconnect comes from. The fights that you've seen between the genders, men don't do this, women don't do this, come from a point of not understanding we're not the same. We're never created the same. We're not meant to be the same. And asking for equality for these two people is like saying that we have to have the GDP of America next year. It's not going to happen.
It isn't.
And I'm not saying that either is superior. In fact, I'm just making the case for the fact that women are emotionally superior to men.
They are more prepared.
More prepared. And that men are actually flung into this whirlwind of a place where they have no clue
what to do.
Yeah, and then also remember the society. And that's why I think, and maybe now I'm overthinking, but a patriarchal society came in place because of realizing how weak we were, to protect us. It was
so
not
you
because
wanted to exert your authority.
You exert your authority to protect yourself because you know you're weak. The story of Mwangi Makeri. Whether she was dominant, she was in control, but the men realized that there was one small weakness and they used biology. It was a biological weapon. All women made pregnant. When they were weak, that's when the men took over. Now, whether that story is true or not, or if it's folklore, demonstrates to you that women have always had a space where they were more powerful than men. And I think that in that culture, which believes in the story of Mwangi, it's a matriarchal culture. It's not patriarchal in any way. Because realizing men cannot lead without direction. That's why mentorship is important for men.
Yes, it is, because I'm even saying some of the failure, even as you speak and you spoke to us, I think the failure comes even from fathers already.
Yes.
I think a lot of men have not been fathered properly, but neither were their fathers fathered properly. So this is this problem is continuing because they were not fathered, they don't father the next thing. So I think what we're saying, for me, the takeout from your conversation was we have to be more deliberate.
Yes.
About how we raise our boys.
True.
We must be very deliberate in what we're speaking to them, and it cannot be the female that does it, because it's the man has to do. It's man on man.
Yes.
Woman on woman.
Yes.
That's what's going to turn this equation around.
It will, and you're spot on. Every time I've had a chance of speaking with men and to men, I realize that they're open. Their ears are more open and hearts wide open to share what their challenges and what their things have been, more than if it was a woman speaking to them.
Yes,
when
that's why you do men and men.
Yeah. So
no, they're not going to listen to the women, but men and men, yes.
Yeah, if a woman goes to talk to men, they'll be like, yeah, we already know we are bad. And as men, we already accepted we are bad. And that's why we win the whole fight. Because if I already tell you I'm bad, there's nothing more you can do to me.
There's nothing else. I already know I'm
I'm
a bad boy. That's
so
it.
I'm set up for failure.
And then you talked about rejection.
Yes.
That men are rejected all the
Oh,
time.
we are
and
rejected.
it's true.
In fact, on my way here, I'm sure I was rejected 3 or 4 times. But I'm fine and I'm still standing.
Yeah. So they learn to stand through the rejection.
A man learns how to deal with it. But then there's a time in their life when they can't deal with it the same way they could have when they were younger.
Okay.
When you're getting closer to more significant relationships and then you start getting rejected there, it has an adverse reaction on you. Because you're not shown how to deal with it emotionally.
How to deal with the rejection.
Yeah.
Because you can't just go and beat up everybody.
No, you can't.
Like,
you can't.
Okay.
So now all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, what do I do? So I'm in town, I get rejected by Kenyans.
Kenyans.
I'll tell you
And
what-
Kenyans.
And Kenyans, exactly. Get rejected by women here. What do I decide? I go to the village. Not that there's anything wrong with a woman in the village, but because my rejection here cannot allow me to end up with the person at my level. So I need somebody I can dominate, I can domineer.
Wow.
I have a better job than them, I have more exposure than them. And so therefore I will rule over them. What I say becomes the word of law. And yet, if you look at the quest for healthy relationships, it shouldn't be like that. You see, women rarely get rejected. I'm not saying that women are not rejected.
But it's rare.
It's very rare. It's very hard you go to a man and tell him, oh, hey, I think you look nice and I'd like to become your partner. And then the guy says, no, get away from me. Most likely, they'll be like, okay, let's see. Let's see if this can work. But for men, it's the opposite. You'll approach someone, you'll be let down, you'll approach the next one. But then I think we've formed a callus around our heart.
You've hardened your heart against now that rejection.
Yes. So that the first person who we get as a partner, we go all out.
For that partner.
For that partner. So we spend so much time, I don't know if you understand, like in the natural world, that the more beautiful animal is actually the male.
Yes, you said so. Even I think it's the peacock and
Peacocks,
all that.
yes.
They're the ones that are more beautiful,
Yeah,
with more colors.
Colors.
On it than even the female.
So you know what my colors are?
I think you told us.
A Range Rover.
Range Rover.
Property.
Hallelujah. Property.
Right? Money in the bank. Somebody say amen.
Amen. I'm saying
Tall,
amen.
dark, handsome, moneyed. Those are my
Moneyed.
feathers.
Those are your feathers. Those are your colors.
Those are my colors.
That's how you're posturing yourself.
That's
out
how I'm
here.
posturing
That's how
myself.
you're attracting as well.
I'm
because
attract-
those things attract as well.
Yes.
They attract.
So the woman who's been prepared for marriage all through meets a barbarian with money.
I'm glad you're the one who's calling them the
I'm
barbarian.
not.
Because
No.
you will get away with calling them barbarian.
Accept.
Meet the barbarian with
We are
money.
men. I remember we said we're already bad.
You're men.
So I'm giving names to us. We are barbarians. We are Zinjanthropos emotionally. Right? But then that's where the problem comes. The push and the clamor, because also women are pressurized to get into relationships more than men. So you find
And
women
especially by a
pressurized.
certain age.
Yes. So then you find women being pressurized. So they end up pressurizing the guy in their life. let's marry, let's marry, let's marry. You find that the guy was not even in that zone. Then you marry him or he marries you. Then now stuff hits the fan.
Yeah, I was going to say the S hits the fan because it does. But I mean, we're seeing so many of them breaking down, crumbling. So I guess what we're saying, it hasn't been well thought out. You haven't thought it through. You haven't prepared. You haven't prepared for this relationship that you're calling marriage.
True.
And that's why lots of them break down, because you're not prepared.
No,
or you're both prepared differently. Even psychologically, because you're a pure psychologist.
Exactly.
So psychologically, you've prepared differently.
Absolutely.
So because we can't just leave them like that, because the next subject, I don't want it to be about that.
Yes.
What do they do? Where do they start? Maybe 2-3 things that they can do.
Okay.
How do we start correcting this injustice?
I think
or
first
this
of all,
drama?
I think first of all is to be pragmatic about expectation. That the man you have is flesh and blood, like anybody else. He promised you the moon, but I'll promise you he won't give you the moon. I'm not being bad. I'm just saying.
No, you're just stating the facts as they are.
I needed the feathers and the colors to attract you,
to draw you in.
But I'm not going to be displaying my feathers when you're inside the house all the time.
Wow.
They did their job.
They got you.
So the expectation from women is that the man will keep flashing his colors
But he's not going
he's
to
not going to do that.
First of all, who has energy? That's too much energy.
He doesn't have the energy, doesn't have the resources. We even do mchanga to take people on dates nowadays because, if I have to take a girl out on a date as a man from Sunday to Saturday, I'm spending on average 5,000, just modestly. That's 35 G's. 35,000 on dates.
People are spending a lot more than 5,000.
And the response you will get, because you're used to rejection, is that, even the food in that restaurant was not nice. But she can go on dates with 7 men and not have to enter her pocket. Now, I'm not chastising men or women or saying, because that's how the dating atmosphere looks like. What I'm saying is that guy who had the energy to do that before marriage
doesn't have the energy.
He won't have it anymore. Because is he going to build you a house? Is he going to pay rent or take you on dates?
And there's school fees to be paid. There's so many expenses.
Yes. And we've not even talked, and I know in the next week probably we'll talk about those seasons of life that now change how those relationships look like.
That was the most eye-opening as well.
Yeah.
I hope you have enjoyed the conversation. All I can say is join the conversation. Let's continue the conversation. God bless and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.